Deserts, Part 1, Distribution. Let's start by defining what a desert is. Does a desert have to be hot? We certainly think of deserts as being hot, but in fact, you could find a cold desert. Just go to northern Alaska. So being hot isn't what makes a desert. It must be dry. So dry, in fact, that it gets less than 25 centimeters of rain in 1 year. Or for those of you who prefer, that's 10 inches. So you that live in Los Angeles, do you live in a desert? Well, Los Angeles, on the average, gets about 14 inches of rain a year. So no, you don't live in a desert. You live in an area called chaparral, which is semi-arid scrub. This map of the world shows the location of deserts. As you can see, most of the deserts tend to be located 30 degrees north or 30 degrees south of the equator. The Sahara Desert is an obvious example, as are the western deserts of Australia. Now that might seem a little strange, because the equator is where the sun's light is the most direct, so it should be the hottest. But remember, a desert is not defined by heat, it's defined by dryness. So this can all be explained by the way in which hot air rises. In this view of the Earth, we have the equator, and the sunlight is making the air hot, and as a result, number one, the hot air is rising. At this point, the air is moist, but as it rises, it cools. Cold air can't hold as much moisture. You might have noticed if you have a cold can of soda and the air hits it, it has to drop its precipitation and you get droplets of condensation on the outside of the soda. Well, as this hot air rises, it gets cold and it can't hold its moisture. The result is rain. So at the equator, it's not surprising, this is where you would find lots of tropical rainforests. Now the air is cold, but it can't fall because there's hot air still coming up out of the equator. So as a result, the cold air moves over either 30 degrees north or 30 degrees south of the equator. There it's free to fall because of its greater density. As it falls, gets closer to the Earth, where the air pressure is greater, it becomes hotter. That is a perfect place for a desert. Finally, this hot, dry air can return to the equator, picking up moisture along the way, and the whole process happens again. Let's take a look at the deserts of North America. The Chihuahuan Desert and the Sonoran Desert are certainly close to 30 degrees north of the equator. But Los Angeles is 34 degrees, so the Mojave Desert is certainly north of 30 degrees, and the Great Basin even more so. So there must be some other reason for the Mojave and the Great Basin to be a desert. There is. It's called the rain shadow effect. With the rain shadow, you have winds coming off the ocean. In this case, it might be the Pacific Ocean. When the wind hits a mountain, it has to go up. And, as before, rising air becomes cool. And cool air cannot hold as much moisture. So the result is you get rain. So on the windward side of the mountain, you get a lot of rain and sometimes even snow. However, when the wind goes beyond the top of the mountain, it descends down, it's now dry, and heats up again. That hot, dry air is a rain shadow, and that's a great place for a desert. All of this relates to California. But first we have to get our bearings. Los Angeles is located down here. These mountains here include the Santa Monica Mountains, the San Gabriel Mountains, a whole series of generally east-west trending mountains called the Transverse Ranges. Then, a large range of mountains going through the entire state are the Sierras. Along the coast, there's another series of mountains, much smaller, called
aptly the coastal ranges. You'll notice San Francisco is right there. In between the coastal ranges and the Sierras, you have what's known as the Central Valley. In the lower right-hand corner, there's a distinct triangular section. That is the Mojave Desert. Then above the Mojave Desert is an area known as Basin and Range. With these areas in mind, let's take a look at what happens when the winds come off the Pacific Ocean. Here they're coming, and they first hit the coastal ranges. They rise up, drop a little bit of their moisture, leaving San Francisco nice and moist. Then they fall back down into the Central Valley, where it's reasonably dry. But they next hit the large Sierra Nevadas. Then they must rise, and they will drop their rain, giving us plenty of rain and luckily our snowpack. But having dropped all that moisture, by the time they come back down, that is very dry air which heats up. The first valley that it hits is the Owens Valley. Owens Valley is a desert. Then there is range after range going as it goes east, the deepest of which is Death Valley. All of this is desert, part of the Basin and Range.